My Dogman encounter. I'm not sure where to start, but my name is Johnathan. I live in South Wisconsin, and me and my bud Nate are avid hunters. We like to take hunting trips out in northern Montana for some bigger game. We plan this trip about every other year, depending on what we have going on. We have been doing this since our mid-20s, and now I'm 48, so almost 30 years. We stay at a friend's cabin close to Flathead National Forest, or at least we used to. Our last trip was 3 years ago, and we still don't like to talk about it amongst ourselves. What we encountered was not right. So back in 2019 we planned our trip and headed out to Montana. We usually just drive straight through and wasn't very eventful. We get to the cabin around 9 p.m. or so and unloaded and relaxed for a bit with a few drinks before hitting the hay. The next morning, we set up our stand and prepped for the next day. We usually get there early and just take in the area before we hunt. Again, that evening wasn't very eventful, but we didn't drink because we like to get up by 5 a.m. and up in the stand. So 5 a.m. came and we got out and were up in the stand waiting for some game. Couldn't been more than an hour when we heard some strange noises coming from the distance. We got a very uncomfortable feeling, mostly because we have been doing this trip for quite some time and never heard this odd gargled grunting. It went on for almost 20 minutes and suddenly stopped. We didn't see any game that morning and wasn't sure if it was the noise, but nothing came by for about 6 hours and we were getting hungry. We thought we'd try our luck in the evening around 5 p.m., which would give us a few hours before sunset. We had luck in the past during that time. This was where the trip took a left turn. We get out there at 4 p.m. hoping to get a little more time in, and we sit and wait. Nothing for the first 2 hours or so, and that's when we hear the gargled grunts again. This time they were getting louder as time went on. At first, we were getting frustrated, because whatever this was, it was clearly scaring off everything, but as the noises grew louder we got a little worried because it was coming our way. And we never encountered these types of noises before in the forest. That's when we saw it for the first time. About 50 yards, over a little bend, it was walking sideways. It walked on 2 legs but with a very noticeable hunch. Its arms didn't look humanly possible, as this thing's knuckles must have been dragging on the ground, as if its arms were as long as its legs. We couldn't believe what we were seeing, like something straight out of a horror movie. Just looking at each other in disbelief and couldn't mutter anything. This thing looked to have a freaking snout on its face. It was sniffing the air, and that's when it turned toward us. I swear I about crapped my pants when this happened. We weren't about to have anything to do with this thing and decided to fire some shots near its direction, but in case it's some weird crazy hermit dude, we didn't intend to hit it. That's when we realized this was no human, because it took off on all 4s. Once that thing took off like that, we about jumped down the stand and hauled back to the cabin, because it was getting dark at this point. We get back to the cabin and inside and slammed the door shut. We stood in silence for what felt like an hour, but in actuality maybe was 5 minutes. We didn't know how to comprehend what we saw, or even if what we saw happened. This thing was walking on 2 legs, then took off on all 4, it wasn't right. It gave us a sick feeling in the gut. As the next hour went by we started calming down quite a bit and trying to rationalize what we saw, and convince ourselves we just didn't see it correctly. I mean, after all, we had a little bit of a distance between us. This reasoning was easing the tension, and so was a few beers. Few hours went by, and we were about passed out and decided to go to bed. Sometime into the night I awoke to what I thought was a loud bang. I popped up in bed, not sure if I actually heard anything or if it was just a dream that startled me awake. Sitting there listening, my heart sank. It was the grunting sounds again coming from outside. I thought to myself, this isn't happening. What in my life led me down this path into the situation I am in right now? I just wanted to be anywhere but here. I wake Nate from his sleep, and he of course popped right up from me, startling him. I tell him what's going on, and we grab our rifles. Listening closely, we hear it moving around back and forth to all sides of the house. I grab my 1000 lumens flashlight, but I keep it off in the meantime so not to give any position away or let this thing know we're here. We make our way to the living room area, standing in the middle of the room, and continue to listen, but nothing. We are just standing there in silence for I don't know how long, but seemed like forever. Knowing this thing is out there, still not wanting to move from our spot, it felt like we were at a standoff, but since it's been a little while, and no more noises were coming from outside, we figured this thing went on its way. That's when I turned on my flashlight and decided to peek out the window. With our guns drawn, we move close to the window and move the curtain and immediately place the flashlight against the glass. To this day, I get chills thinking about it. It looked like a wolf's or dog-like face pressed up against the glass. I don't like picturing it in my head, but I pissed myself all while jumping back, firing through the window. I hear the thing stomping away very fast. And that was enough. We grabbed the keys and left most of what we brought behind. Hopped in the truck and stormed out of there. We tried explaining to our friend what happened at his cabin, but he brushed it off, saying we had too much to drink and a wild animal was just walking through. But this thing had to be standing almost 7 feet tall in the window. That was the last time we headed out there and don't have any plans to ever go back. Hunting in Wisconsin is just fine.